Now I would like to continue with Sam. Welcome. Again, I'll start with a short introduction. Sam Maldonado is a fourth-generation member of a Venezuelan agribusiness family who had to sell their core business and because of political and economic turmoil, later rebuilt their family office in Miami. Educated in the US and also Germany, he holds a bachelor degree in psychology and business administration and also a master's degree in family entrepreneurship, and has served in international next-gen leadership roles within the Family Business Network. Today, he is director of the Ven Africa Private Game Reserve in South Africa, and founded CIVA, a nonprofit advancing conservation, sustainability, and community development. In his Impulse talk, he will share what it takes to protect a legacy when the original context disappears, and how the next generation can recreate continuity in a new country. Thank you so much for being here with us, Sam.
No, thank you for the opportunity. Can everybody hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Wonderful. Yeah, thank you for that wonderful introduction. I don't know if we can put the slides show on the screen. That'll help guide me through the different topics I would like to discuss. So yeah, I come from, like Yola said, from a big business family for many decades, many generations in Venezuela. But because of political reasons, and we'll get into it in a little bit, we had to make the decision to leave. So we were involved in agriculture. We had approximately about 130,000 hectares of land. But we, over the years, through my father's generation, and with the support of my grandfather, we expanded into other different businesses like insurance and dairy companies that grew very large. But I'm going to focus today on our agricultural and conservation legacy. So if you go to the next slide, that'll help guide me through the different topics. So my great-grandfather, who I'm named after, no pressure, Sam Maldonado, bought Atol Frio in 1911. It's about a 70,000 hectare farm in the Venezuelan llanos. He was not a farmer. His brother-in-laws were, and to support them, they said this was this amazing opportunity, and he decided to go ahead and purchase this property. He died when my grandfather was quite young, and my grandfather's uncles managed the farm until he was of age to start taking over. And slowly but surely, starting off with this one farm, my grandfather founded Imbega, which is our cattle company, in 1948. He grew it into quite a big cattle operation, like I had mentioned, 130,000 hectares. But he recognized early on that this one farm, Atol Frio, where it's located in the Orinoco floodplains, had a very unique biodiversity. And it was very important for him to find a way to balance having cattle with keeping the pristine nature of the environment. And he became a pioneer in sustainable cattle ranching in Venezuela. Then in 1973, a set of famous Spanish documentarians, Felix Rodriguez de la Fuente, organized an expedition to our farm to film the first chapter of his series El Hombre y la Tierra. And together with him, he brought several biologists that were just blown away with the farm and its biomass production capability and the diversity of species. And through that contact, we had established a research station to give the opportunity for different students to conduct research on the different species, flora, fauna, and how the overall environment works. And some of the most important body of works on the Orinoco floodplains were done in our farm over a period of 35 years. Then over the years, with the coming of power of Hugo Chavez, the threat of the land reform laws started to come into effect. And we fought very hard in the courts that our farm wouldn't be part of the land reform process, where they were expropriating farms. But unfortunately, one day they got fed up with all our fighting in court, and they just showed up with the military in April 2009, and they just gave our employees 2 hours to leave. And since that moment, we have not had access to the farm. And as if that already wasn't a traumatizing experience, the government agents that took over the farm, they took all of our a library that was at the biological station, where they had a catalog of all the different research papers that they had done there, and they set them on fire. So kind of gives you an idea of what the level of destruction that started with that process. There was about 200 works that have been conducted, and some of them going back into the 70s were written in typewriter, and all of the log diaries of the research that was conducted in the field diaries were also lost, which was very sad for us. But that led us to make the decision that we can no longer stay in Venezuela. It was a very sad and traumatizing realization to come to. But having lived this experience, we knew that things were only going to get worse. And because of that, we started our very meticulous process of trying to sell our family businesses, which it was very difficult for us as a family, because after so many generations of being in a family business, your pride, your image, your identity is very much connected to those different organizations, and to some of the legacy you built over the years. And now my family was in a position where we had to kind of leave our country and start anew elsewhere. But at least our first step was to try to preserve as much of our wealth as we could while we still could. And fortunately we did, because things only got worse since the moment in 2009, 2010, when we started diversifying. So it was difficult for all of us. I didn't have a job anymore. My entire plans kind of imploded for my life. But life goes on. Most of my family moved to Florida, to South Florida. It was the easiest thing. And then we established our family office to start building anew with what we were able to preserve, fortunately. I moved to Germany because at the time I had a girlfriend who's now my wife, and was very much lost and not knowing what I was going to do with my life. That's when I was spending more time learning German and volunteering for FBN, which was a very enriching experience. So if you go to the next slide, I'll go to the second part of the story. So my grandfather had purchased this farm in 1973. I had zero connection to it for most of my life, but we never sold it. We had an uncle there that had moved from Venezuela because he was also looking for what to do once we all had to leave Venezuela, and he volunteered to go manage this cattle farm. My grandfather originally purchased it because he wanted it to be kind of a learning, educational farm, where we could send our employees, our cattle managers, our veterinarians, to learn from, at the time, the South Africans. We were at the top of their game in animal science, animal husbandry, and cattle management. So through a connection, through a very well-known professor, Professor Bonsma, he visited South Africa. He must have fallen in love because he had the inspiration to make an investment there despite the distances back then. But that was the vision. He wanted our employees to learn from the top, most knowledgeable people in the world, which were at the time South Africans, and also learn English, which was an additional benefit. The farm was managed by a partner for several years. Unfortunately, he got sick with Parkinson's, and then my uncle took over and managed it for 17 years, and he was getting ready to retire. So that's when my family contacted me to see if I could go there to South Africa and see what do we do with this farm. Is there a way to make it sustainable? Because while my uncle was there for years, it was not covering its own costs. We had to send money there every year, and it had become quite a burden on the family. And we weren't sure what to do with it. It's far away. I think at least 90% of my cousins and family members had never been there, including myself. But since I was somewhat in the same area of the world and same time zone, see if I was interested in figuring out how what we could do with this farm, if there was a way to make it sustainable, or should we just sell it? And I did my first trip in 2017. And the moment I arrived, I mean, I just got this incredible euphoria take over me, because a lot of it reminded me of our farms in Venezuela, and it just connected me to all the childhood that I had spent going to our farms, being in that nature, being with the people of the area, with the culture. And here we have this beautiful piece of land that we have not lost for whatever reason we hadn't sold yet, and it's still there. So I immediately felt that there was a huge opportunity to continue our conservation legacy, which would have been a shame for it to be lost after so many years of my grandfather and my uncles and my father and our parents continuing it, to lose it completely. And I just felt connected to that legacy immediately when I was there. It was not going to be easy because we were losing money, and it was pretty much a no-go suggestion to tell my family, hey, invest a bunch of money and we're going to take this farm and sell off all the cattle, which is the only thing that's giving us any income, and we're going to build a lodge and turn it into a tourism and conservation and animal wildlife sightseeing operation. So that was absolutely completely out of the question. I had to earn my family's trust, but we had a good manager there, and we had an idea that this could work. The neighbors around us were all big wildlife private game reserves, and it just seemed like a natural shift for us to do. And the question was just to convince my family that this was something worth investing. And we just decided to take the risk. And in 2018, we just sold all the cattle. So there was no going back. And we just put all the funds. We managed it very carefully to turn our humble farmhouse into a working lodge. And with some creativity and a lot of goodwill and help from, friends and contacts, we did manage to build something that resembles a nice, comfortable lodge. And we started hiring people to do tourism there. But we ran quickly into the difficulty that we weren't going to be able to make it profitable unless we make this leap, which was to turn it into a Big Five game reserve. And what Big Five means is that you need to have elephant, rhinos, buffalo, lion, and leopard, which is what international tourists want to see. And without accomplishing that, we would not have been able to ever be financially sustainable. So we worked very hard, meeting with all the neighbors, trying to tell them why it's important, or why it was valuable for them to join with us, because the way we saw it, these big animals, lions and elephants, for example, I'll use elephants for example, they need a lot of range. We have been, as humans, splitting everything into small chunks, and these large animals aren't meant to be trapped in this small area. So if you keep a herd of elephants, and even though we have 6,000 hectares, which for European standards is big, and for a lot of sensors it's very big, for a herd of elephant it's quite small. And then you have to manage it very intensively, and that goes against our conservation principles. We want everything to be in its own balance, and the only way to get there was to try to expand the range and enter partnerships with our neighbors, so that we can have more land where the animals could enter into their natural balance. The question was trying to build that trust with our neighbors to try to convince them. And we didn't have luck, to be honest, in the beginning. And we thought we weren't sure if we were going to be able to succeed. But sometimes, bad things happen for have some good outcomes. And during the COVID pandemic, a lot of our neighbors were struggling because they depend on tourism to bring in funds to fund their operation. And with COVID, everything shut down. They didn't have any income, and they still had to maintain, their workforce. So the opportunity came where we were able to get the support from the family to help fund, and we could buy those different animals from our neighbors, and then just drop the fence lines between us and double the size of the reserve. And that was a huge game changer for us, where finally we were able to have a big 5 game reserve, and that made our business model much more viable. And since then, now we have a property that has the great potential for whatever we invest in there, that we have a higher chance of succeeding. And it has given me great satisfaction, because even though we had lost that part of our conservation legacy in Venezuela, we could continue it in South Africa. It's not dissimilar to Venezuela in a lot of things, a lot of similar challenges, which we're all familiar with. But it was totally worth it. And my family was so connected to our conservation legacy, the majority anyway, that they really have supported this project so that we could get to where we are, and they're quite proud of it. And it also has been a great inspiration for the next generation, because as you lose that identity from having left everything in Venezuela, and you start figuring out who are you or what keeps you together as a family, it starts getting difficult to figure out what are those things that hold us together. But this project has really galvanized the unity of a lot of our members of our family, and especially it's becoming quite an important project for the next generations. So I haven't kept track of the time, but that's kind of the overarching experience I've had over the years with this project, and I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you so much, Sam. Thank you also for sharing this story. Really thought-provoking journey your family has had. To our audience, please feel free to post any questions into the chat. I've already seen one, but first I want to start with a question I'm very interested in, because also my background is psychology. You studied psychology too, and I wanted to ask, how did that come, and how has it helped you working in your family business?
Well, I think I told the story to the both of you that shortly before I was to pick my course of study, I got invited to participate in my first ever family council meeting when my aunts and uncles and father were still in charge, and I felt it was so dysfunctional that if I didn't study psychology, I wouldn't survive my family. But I think it helps you develop a certain understanding and compassion about the human process, about what makes us human, what connects us, what really helps us overcome adversity, and the importance of building your family relationships and having things in common that you're passionate about. So when you do face the certain challenges, There's a lot of emotional goodwill that you built over the years through your family relationship. And the farms and the time that we spent in nature was huge for me and my family, with my cousins, with my siblings, to spend that time there and share in that experience, and just incredible memories of going to visit the Spanish biologist in the biological station, where they had all these samples of things that they were finding, giant anacondas or wounded animals, or they'd show you their research, or you'd go with them to gather crocodile eggs. Those are the kinds of memories that you live as a family that really bond you. So for me, this project and the continuation of our conservation legacy is what gave us kind of that sense of purpose and connected us to those experiences, those fond memories that we had as a family, which is what helps us see that there's a bigger picture, and that the conflicts that you face or the differences that you have don't become the louder voices. So I think it did give me a huge appreciation for that aspect of family business.
This leads me to one question from the Q&A section. What does conservation mean to you personally, and what did you and how did you qualify yourself to take on this project?
Well, conservation for me means to try to educate yourself as best as possible about what is required to bring the wildlife to its most undisturbed and pristine form. And it's always challenging, because, of course, the most important thing is to leave it alone. But we're also having to balance the tourism or the cattle operation to make it sustainable, to give us the resources to protect it. So it's trying to find the balance between understanding the complexities of an environment, but also balancing it with the realities of our world today, and that you need to make sure that it's financially sustainable as well, because that's what gives you the possibility to protect it. Like, I mean, we have a big part of our budget in South Africa is anti-poaching. We're regularly being threatened by poachers, especially for rhino poachers. And we qualified 2 years ago for the program of the World Wildlife Fund for the Black Rhino Range Expansion Project. It's one of the most threatened and critically endangered species. So now we have these critically endangered rhinos in our property that we need to protect. We have white rhino as well, but they're just constantly being threatened. And in order to do that, it has to go hand in hand with a viable business plan. So you have the resources, and you have to keep continuously growing. Just as an example, because of the war in Ukraine, drone technology has become incredibly sophisticated and inexpensive. And now the poachers are using it with thermal cameras to find the animals quicker. And we have to keep up to speed and continue to invest and stay on the cutting edge so that we can protect the wildlife. How did I prepare myself? I didn't particularly study biology, but my family has always understood the importance of scientific research. And even though I have not studied it myself, it is important for me to make the best management decisions based on the best research. And that helped us a lot manage our environment in our farm before, because having those biologists on the ground, you can consult them to see how you can best meet that balance between the human impact and keeping things as pristine, and make the best decisions based on the most cutting edge science and the people who really understand that aspect. So that's part of my dream now. I'm actually going next week to South Africa, because we're looking to see how we can continue those partnerships, where we can have a biological station where research scientists can come and spend some time on the farm and do their field work.
So I think you've already answered one of the questions about the biological station in South Africa. So you have one there, or several ones. Can you maybe give us some insights on that?
No, not yet. We want to do one there on site. We still use a lot of scientists for any kind of decision we make, whether um, the like I'll give an example. The farm was heavily overgrazed with cattle, and that helped the proliferation of thorny bush and the grasslands of the African savanna, which is what Africa. When one thinks of Africa, that's what you think about. Has been taken over by this thorny bush. So we, with the previous generations of cattle ranching, has already created an imbalance, and the best way to combat that or bring it back is through fire, which is the most natural way how bush encroachment has been fought in the past. But it's complicated and it's dangerous, and you want to do it in a way where it doesn't affect the wildlife, and you want to give them a chance to flee so that you don't push them up against the fences or put them under too much stress. And for that, we have to have all of these studies conducted on the different areas, the vegetation, and with local experts in bush encroachment. Then you make a decision as to what's the best way to start bringing everything back to its pristine nature. So we're constantly working with them already. With any decision we make, whether it's with a rhino or with the elephant, you have to do it. In that sense, South Africa is very sophisticated and regulated, and the government requires a lot of these research and scientists to help you come up with these kinds of management plans so that the wildlife thrives. But the dream now is to continue that aspect of building a biological station similar to what we had in Venezuela in South Africa. That's what my trip now is, to find like an area or look at the available infrastructure, because we are now planning our second stage, which is to partner with another huge farm next to us, and together with that farm, we've purchased land it's the land that connects us, which is the last piece in private hands. And since those new farms are going to be part of the greater reserve, but there's some infrastructure that came with it, we are now going to see where we can offer that to different universities, starting, of course, with the biologist network that we've had a long-standing relationship in Spain, but then opening it up to different universities all over the world. So the idea is that you can have several residencies so that different students can go and spend their time there. So that's our next stage now. And for us, what was really interesting, and something we're going to continue from what we learned in Venezuela, is that the biological station there had a small lodge, and you had this combination where the tourists then could come and join the biologists and help them with field work, or they can at least teach you what they're doing. And that was incredibly valuable, and actually gives us a little bit of a unique selling point for our tourism operation, that you have scientists on site that then can come and explain to your guests what it is that they're doing, or they can join, or they can help at least in part of the research or gathering samples. So that's something that you pick up from what we were doing before, and now it seems like an incredible opportunity where you can bring a unique experience and education to your guests.
And spreading knowledge. Okay. Having our time in mind, I would like to conclude with a bit of a more practical question for successors facing political or economic crisis. What practical steps or tips would you, Sam, recommend to protect the family legacy and also pivot successfully?
Yeah, that was a very challenging thing to go through, because you're very loyal to your country. You're very proud of being there from there. You're grateful for everything that it's given us as a family and everything we built because of that. So we have this incredible gratitude. And then you have to balance that with reality, which was that things were just getting more and more difficult, and things were getting more restrictive and more repressive against the private sector. So we always said we would leave on the last boat. That's kind of what we would say at every meeting. But I think the important thing was when you're in a situation where the government's becoming more aggressive, you have to meet more regularly with your family to discuss how everybody's feeling and just have an open conversation about safety, about risk, about fear, about the next generations, and how this could affect them if we lose everything, which a lot of families did in Venezuela. So in that time, it's especially important to just meet and talk about that. It's also very important to try to get as best sources as you can, because when things are getting um, um, as all these conflicts are arising, or as the government starts becoming more aggressive, there's a lot of rumors and a lot of fear that goes around, and it's very tough to get real factual information and to get rid of some of the noise, because when you live in third world countries, there's bad stuff happening all the time. You just learn to deal with it, and you also don't want to get complacent that it's going to be fine. It's when you start uh, looking at the facts and try to stick with the facts as much as possible, then you start seeing there's some warning signs. And for us, of course, it reached a point where once they take your farms and you see that they can just go in there and take it. They never paid for us, by the way. And, with this new change in Venezuela at the moment, there's this new hope that we might get some of our farms back. But it's also at the same time terrifying because everything's been abandoned. I mean, it's going to take an incredible effort to try to, bring things back to how they were, or to bring any kind of viable operation to recover everything. So there is some hope there that we get things back, but at the time, they just came and took things, and what more of a warning or do you want to have? And yeah, it was very tough. And the other thing is that when that happens, the family has to think a lot about supporting their family members establish themselves someplace else. And it's a very tough decision, because if you can't just do everything for everybody. We're in my generation, we're 17 cousins, and if you pay for all the expenses and relocation expenses for everybody, or visa expenses to get their residencies or citizenships, it was not financially possible for us. But there are ways where you can support each other, and the way we continue to support our family members is that we'll pay for your education, and that kind of gives you the foot in the door to go do a master's, to go do your doctorate, for the younger generations to go study abroad, to learn something new. And that helps you first take that first step to leave, and then it gives you some time to settle and then figure out how you're gonna start anew in that place, and to try to at least to a certain extent support them so that they can make that transition. So that was also a huge support that our family gave to us, which of course, we did have conflict where the family felt they needed more support, because emigrating is not easy, even though we had resources. Compared to Venezuela, the lifestyle you live there versus the US is going to take an incredible adaptation, and then you can't just give everybody jobs in the family office. So it was very challenging to figure out, who would stay with roles within the family office and who would have to take that leap and, find a new career path, or find a new become independent in business, or that part was very important as well.
Thanks for sharing the story and also how you overcame all those obstacles as a family. Thank you for being with us, Sam.
Thank you so much, Sam.
No, thank you guys for the opportunity, and for opportunity to participate in the other sessions, and they were very enriching. So thank you so much for your opportunity. If you need anything, or if anybody in the audience is curious or wants to reach out to discuss any of the topics, feel free to share my contact information. I'm happy to help other family businesses through whatever challenges or whatever projects they're dealing with.
Yes, thank you so much for being part of the conference, dear Sam. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.